So I think it's always important for people in leadership positions to be authentic and self-critical in the sense of looking at themselves in a very frank, sober kind of way, and then appreciating what kind of team do you need to support for your weaknesses, to help build on your strengths, and how you can then reciprocally do that back with them. Having empathy towards others makes a much better work environment, much less stress, and really, in the long run, helps a company's culture. A lot of times people fall in love, startup founders fall in love with whatever their tech is and think, well, if I love it, everyone's going to love it. And if they love it enough to buy it, then they'll be successful. But if they love it just because it's interesting and esoteric, then they have a hobby, they don't have a business.
And that is coming up next on Bootstrapping Your Dreams show, so stay tuned. So, the big question is this: how are ambitious people like us, who don't have a lot of resources, did not go to Ivy League colleges, were not born into wealth, how do we become resourceful enough, use our creativity, our dedication, and a little bit of crazy to bootstrap our way to realizing our dreams? Whether it is launching a new company, launching a new app, or making it to the top of the corporate ladder. That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. We have created a tremendous community of bootstrappers, entrepreneurs, and professionals who are ambitious, resourceful, and want to get things done. We brainstorm, support, and help each other out. So come join us. Navigate to bootstrapping.group, join today, and get the Startup Founders Technology Accelerator video series absolutely free. If you enjoy this video, then do let us know by hitting that like button now. Or if you want us to improve our content, then go ahead and hit that thumbs down button and give us your honest feedback in the comment section below. Here at Tetanoodle, we are passionate about entrepreneurship, technology, and innovation. Every week, we bring you insightful and engaging videos, interviews, tips, tricks, and strategies to help you grow your business or rise in your corporate profession. If you're new here, please do consider subscribing, and do not forget to hit that bell icon so that you are notified when we publish new content.
Hello and welcome to this new episode of Bootstrapping Your Dreams show. I'm your host Manoj Agarwal, and today we'll be talking with a very special guest, Dr. Chris Stout. Dr. Stout's career includes business, government, non-profit, as well as UN and academia. He's traveled the world, published 38 books, won a wide range of accolades, including 4 additional doctorates. And in addition to TEDs, Davos, Renaissance Weekends, he's a licensed clinical psychologist and founding director of the Center for Global Initiatives, a top-rated healthcare nonprofit. His entrepreneurial experience is demonstrated in multiple startups, serving as an advisory board member, early money in investment. He has served as CEO, CIO, all kinds of C-level positions. He's traveled to over 100 countries, founded a kindergarten in Tanzania, listed as TED founder Richard Saul Wurman's Who's Really Who 1000, the most creative individuals in America. Purdue has named a scholarship in Dr. Stout's honor. Wow, I mean, this is amazing. I'm so excited to have you, Dr. Stout.
No, it's a pleasure and an honor. Thanks. Good to be here.
All right. So, accomplishing 10% of what you have been able to do is a tall order. So, can you take us down the memory lane and tell us how, when you got started working at 2 years of age, how did that happen?
I guess maybe as a little bit of advice is to have a direction and to have a path, but then to feel very comfortable to go off that path. I started off living with my mom in Dallas in a very urban area. My folks got divorced, and I lived with my father in a very rural area, and that helped me decide that I was not going to be a farmer, that I was going to go to college. And going into college, I thought I was probably going to be a math major, started off in that, wound up then in architecture, and then from there went into psychology. So as a psychologist, I fantasized that I would be a private practitioner, have my own private practice, wound up being an academic and an administrator and getting involved in research. And one thing would lead to another. And just had opportunities to build things and to get involved and start things. So I would say just be open to new opportunities, to be very opportunistic, and when you're starting off on your career, to very rarely say no to anything.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a very interesting advice, because a lot of successful people we talk to, they tend to say focus on one thing and just make sure you focus on that thing alone. So how does that contrast your advice versus, like, did you maintain certain focus, or it was like sort of, let's see what happens?
It was always a focus, and I think from your other guests, a lot of times that's a very important thing in startups. Mm-hmm. When you have a startup, you are, if you're the founder of the startup, you're doing everything, and it's very easy to lose focus. When I was CEO of a startup of a residential treatment center, I was doing everything, and one of the first things I really should have done was focus on hiring other C-level and vice president level people to manage the things that I really didn't have a skill set in. So I think it's important for entrepreneurs and founders and people involved in startups to keep that focus, because you can have focus creep. You can have thousands of other important things that come to get in your way. For me personally, I would be very focused on the task at hand. So if it was the task at hand, it might be getting through undergraduate, and then the task at hand might be getting into graduate school. So once those things happened, then I could start to sample, if you will, other kinds of areas. For me as a psychologist, I had the opportunity to be involved in research. So that was clinical. So even though I was practicing, I could then still do statistical analysis of the clinical work that we were doing. So those kinds of overlaps, sort of like a very large Venn diagram, where you are going in a direction, but oftentimes you see a lot of collaborative opportunities and collateral opportunities to be able to build. So I appreciate there is an importance of focus, but also to get the task done, but then be able to incorporate other things.
Yeah. So that's great. So to summarize, like from what I understood is, like, when you're trying to figure out which direction you want to go, and you want to explore as many areas as possible. Once you find that direction, then you make sure that you don't get distracted a lot.
Exactly. And sometimes that means getting other people to help you out, that they can do the things that would be a distraction for you.
Awesome. Okay, so now let's take it to the next level. Like, it's okay. It's like a lot of people dabble into things, but not. Very, very small number of people find the kind of success that you found in multiple fields. So what was that like? How come, what is the secret of your success? If I can just ask directly.
Well, thank you for thinking I'm successful. I appreciate that. I guess in the sense of a lot of the work can have multiple applications. So for example, I do clinical work. In that clinical work, I do research around that. I enjoy writing. So in the process of doing that, I might give a presentation on a new idea that I want to test out. In testing out that new idea in front of a group of other professionals, I get good criticism that helps my idea ripen and mature and be better. In that process, I start to then meet other people to kind of germinate my idea. They may have a similar kind of perspective, and then I get the new idea to say, well, I don't have the ability to write. This my idea might lend itself to a chapter, but maybe not an entire book. So with the colleagues that I've been talking to, bouncing my idea around with, what if they, with their expertise in a little different but related areas, would like to write a chapter? So then all of a sudden I've got a group of colleagues we're working together. I'm taking a leadership role in it to get everybody going, but then we've got a book. That's good for them. That's good for me. That is helpful in getting an academic position further down the road, or getting an academic promotion further down the road. So even though it might have just started with one creative idea from a clinical experience, applying science to that, a presentation to that, collaboration with others with that, it all adds up. And then you do that, rinse and repeat, and then you wind up, 30 years later with 30 some odd books and a nice network of colleagues that you can continue to do that same process with.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, the compounding effect of those, those projects obviously they come to fruition in a huge way after a few years, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I've tried to just replicate and do that. So if you're doing a startup, depending upon if it's a chief operating officer, if it's a chief executive officer, same kind of process, same kind of skill set, not in writing and not in producing a book, but then creating a new entity of some sort, a new practice, a new facility.
Cool. And the question then becomes: you have deep knowledge about the human psychology. Did that have anything to do with how you were able to sort of bring people together and collaborate in a way that most people find it difficult?
I think psychology certainly helped me with that. It helped me understand where there might be anxieties or people that maybe have concerns about certain kinds of issues, that I would be able to appreciate those issues, respond to them empathically, like Stephen Covey wrote, first seek to understand. And I think that's really kind of part and parcel of someone doing clinical work as a psychologist. But also a lot of the psychological aspects of things too that I've studied and learned over the years are in industrial organizational psychology. So it's looking at people working together as team members, as teammates, to try and look at and deconstruct as best one can leadership and versus management kinds of issues. And then having a sensitivity, and again, back to empathy and an appreciation for all of those that you work with. I mean, some people, and I've written little pieces here and there over the years about command and control kinds of aspects of leadership. And for myself and who I am as a person, characterologically, that just was never a good fit. So I think it's always important for people in leadership positions to be authentic and self-critical in the sense of looking at themselves in a very frank, sober kind of way, and then appreciating what kind of team do you need to support for your weaknesses, to help build on your strengths, and how you can then reciprocally do that back with them.
Yeah, for sure. And in your experience working with on your own startups and working with other entrepreneurs, how much do you think that is being applied in the real world? Like, do you think people are valuing these sort of soft qualities of empathy and self-awareness and these related paradigms?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's actually becoming more looked at. I think there's more studies in it. I actually just saw Seth Godin had a blog where he was talking about the soft skills, and he said everything is a soft skill, which I thought, okay, if Seth Godin says that, then that's something we should pay attention to. So, and he was kind of pointing out that there's hard ways to do things and easier ways to do things, and nevertheless things can get done. So I think that being like the cliched working smart, I think part of the soft skills aspects of being able to work with others, have an empathy towards others, makes a much better work environment, much less stress, and really in the long run helps a company's culture.
Yeah, that's true. So now let's dig a little bit deeper there. So since you are familiar with psychology, you're familiar with entrepreneurship. Can you share with us like what kind of mindset, what kind of psychological framework that somebody needs to develop in order to be successful at entrepreneurship? Because I find that a lot of people, as you said, like these things which are considered somehow associated with human weakness, like empathy or just caring for other people, they typically they're not very prevalent in the business community. So in business community, it's more about the courage or machism and just getting things done. So between these two extremes, like what do you think is the right balance of a successful entrepreneur's mindset?
I think almost kind of borrowing from group dynamics or even family therapy, I think unsuccessful companies and failed startups tend to be very chaotic environments. If you see a chaotic family, usually there's going to be acting out. People are going to be unhappy. It's always 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. There's a lot of friction. There's a lot of tension. Those problems then fester and create other problems. I think applying it to an entrepreneurial circumstance is the sense of providing clarity, honesty, structure, expectations. Those are all things that might be less of the soft skills side of things. Being organized, maintaining a non-chaotic kind of environment. Then you can add to that with the aspects of having, like, recruiting might be an issue. You may have people that have really good skill sets, but if you're known as being a toxic work environment, you're not going to be able to recruit the kind of caliber of people that you want to. So being able to have an environment where people want to work and be proud to be there and comfortable to be there is back to the soft skills side.
Cool. And just carrying it forward, like you worked in the UN, you worked in the academia and the business environment. So how do you think the environment is different? How do you think people think differently, behave differently, act differently in these environments?
Wow, that's a great question. I guess at some level, actually, this isn't different. It's similar. Is a respect and a mutuality and honestly like a diplomacy, being very kind to one another and open to listening to one another. That gets counterbalanced in each one of those environments with being able to make a good argument and make a good point. So while people might have very divergent black and white kinds of perspectives on something, they still work together in an environment in which nothing is personalized, nothing is said, with unkind words. The choice of words are very carefully chosen. In an academic setting, you see that by virtue of, I think, establishing a classroom that has respect for the students. That respect for students then gets generalized back out to the faculty, to the professors. I think in business environments as well, not just with running your own startup, but then with getting customers. Again, it gets back to of if I'm a customer of a startup and that I feel neglected, or I feel like they don't get me, or I feel like they have a crummy user interface, then I'm not going to be a customer for very long. So I think all of those kinds of engagement aspects are critical in any area.
Yeah, that's so true. And what about the general sort of thought that UN and international organizations like those, they are very much slowed down by red tape and hardly anything gets done. And as far as academia is concerned, a lot of stigma around, in academia, we're not teaching the kids practical skills that they can apply in the real world. Do you feel that these, the way that we think about these institutions, is that correct, or is that there is some truth to that in how they are structured and they are run?
Yeah, it's probably a generalization based upon a lot of real experiences. There's an economist named William Easterly who has written a great deal about this, that large institutions like the United Nations, like the World Bank, like the World Health Organization, grow from being small to then being large to being gigantic. At a certain point, there's a tipping point where there's the work that's being done by the entity, but then it gets so large that the work of the entity becomes maintaining the entity. And I think you certainly see that in any large organization. There's lots of organizations that have 10,000 plus, people scattered throughout the world, which isn't necessarily unlike the United Nations or World Bank, et cetera. I think in academia, and you're hearing a very biased perspective at this point, is that you can see that from a large institutions, universities made up of a number of schools or colleges. But I would like to think, and I think where I'm at right now, we practice this, is that there's a very student-focused kind of perspective.
I see.
I'm a mentor to a number of students, and this position is relatively fresh for me. And I'm just amazed with all the other challenges that the students, these are graduate students, so they're older, oftentimes have families. all the challenges that they have. And the university is very sensitive to two things. One is their circumstance that school isn't the only thing. It's a priority, but it's not the only thing. And the other is that they complete their PhD dissertations. That there's been, I had faculty back when I was in graduate school that took like 13 years, one fellow, one professor, to finish his PhD. So it was sort of like, that was kind of like the unspoken issue of academia, because it's very easy to get lost in the of a large institution. I think when a department within a school, within a university, has a very student-centric focus, those kinds of problems are less and less.
Cool. That's great. Well, yeah, I mean, thanks a lot for sharing that unique perspective, because not a lot of people can share that information from the inside, right? We only look at it from the outside. Now let's look at the future. Obviously you've been involved in a lot of initiatives, and one of the things I want to talk to you about is artificial intelligence. I believe you have some relationship to whatever work is going on in that field. Yes.
Yeah, couple of things. I mean, historically, I had actually, like with dinosaur era technology, written some programs, again, back to your earlier point in discussion, of getting a few birds with one stone. When I first started off in clinical practice, I was very concerned as a psychologist that I might have someone that has an endocrine disorder presenting to me for depression versus a psychological genesis to the depression. And so I created like a little algorithm to be able to kind of do what's called a differential diagnosis between an endocrine or a medical disorder and a psychological disorder. Okay. And that kind of back from starting off in math and in computer science is kind of pushed to today. There's a couple of projects where we're working with startups with other entities that are looking at artificial intelligence to be able to take disparate data sources. This is still in healthcare, but the genomic data, a little bit more sophisticated than 23andMe, but that kind of thing, microbiome data, psychological data, general health status, blood test results, medications, etc., a variety of different kinds of things that are involved in a person's makeup, and then looking at how those things work together, where there might be like previously unidentified weaknesses or problems that may manifest as a cause of a depression or anxiety, and then how creating a technology to be able to intervene with that. So the AI aspect of the machine learning aspect of it is to really take to have an algorithm that would load all the differential weighting of those impacts, and then be able to show that we could improve a person's quality of life, likely to improve their health span, and then also be better employees, to be more productive, et cetera, and just more comfortable in their own skin.
Awesome. Well, so it sounds like it's a huge leap forward than how we diagnose. How physicians diagnose problems today. Like, they ask for some symptoms and then they determine, okay, it sounds like this is what the problem is, versus taking a whole bunch of, sort of comprehensive data about you. It's almost like very personalized medicine. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's certainly going in that direction. Personalized medicine also has a focus on the quantified self and Internet of Things and wearables and sensors. So that would probably be maybe a 2.0 version of what we're starting to work with. Right now, when you go in the States, when you go to see a physician, usually, symptoms just verbally, and then blood tests. Huge. I mean, that's the foundation. That's terrific. But a lot of people are into other kinds of things. They're into their sleeping patterns. They're into monitoring their diets. They're into exercise. They've maybe had a 23andMe done or some kind of genetic testing done. And then when they come to that same physician, the physician knows how to do the blood test and how to ask questions, but he or she may not know, well, how do I integrate microbiome data to that? How do I integrate genomic data to that? So, and that healthcare provider, kind of in today's world, doesn't have time to become an expert in genetics and microbiome and psychology and all these other things. So we're working to kind of create a sophisticated but very user-friendly to both the patient and to the healthcare provider way to be able to have a sophisticated diagnostic tool that will help say what's going on, or probabilistically make recommendations as to what the diagnosis may be, and then depending upon the proper diagnosis, make treatment recommendations based upon the evidence-based literature.
Cool. That's great. And so, obviously, nobody can tell the future, but if we were to speculate, like in 20, 30 years, where do you think AI will take us in terms of, healthcare and help us eradicate some diseases? Do you have any insights that you can share?
My crystal ball, which isn't necessarily always predictively accurate, I think diagnostics will get much better. We already see that in radiology, dermatology, a number of areas today. Computers can see better than we can generally, and computers can remember things way better than we can, and computers can search literature much more efficiently than we can. So those are all today. In the future, I think those kinds of things will combine and conspire into more distributed kinds of areas, so to speak. I mean, right now, your Apple Watch can tell you, if there's a fluke with your heart. I mean, again, that's today. So I think whatever kinds of sensors, whatever kinds of things that might be in our homes or wherever it is that we're living, I think we're going to see those things be integrated in, and probably much less reliance on brick and mortar hospitals as we know them today. I think we'll also see probably better concern about lifestyle kinds of disorders. We already know smoking's bad. We already know obesity's bad. We'll probably be able to manage our diets a little bit better. We'll probably see kind of an integration of what we eat, and I presume, even with meal plans and things like that, about what'll happen.
Awesome. That's great. So it seems like, even if we are not able to eliminate things like cancer, just those preventive measures will most likely have positive impact. Yeah.
Yeah, I would think so. I think we'll have those kinds of things applied. I mean, it's almost kind of strange. There's simple things like just improving diet, decreasing weight, and increasing exercise can stave off diabetes forever, can reverse people's diabetic conditions, those kinds of things. So I think that we'll probably see a lot of the lifestyle if people are compliant to those lifestyle changes that they need to do, then we'll see that. That should help increase longevity. And even more so than lifespan is something called health span, meaning that, just about everybody wants to live to be older. But if you're 80 years old and, bedridden, the quality of your life, is not very good. So a physician, Peter Attia, who talks about having like a aged Olympics. So like if we're 90 years old, what do you want to be able to do? Do you want to be able to pick up your grandchild and, hold them over your head? Do you want to be able to get yourself out of the pool without using the ladder? Do you want to be able to run a mile? So if you want to do all that stuff, you don't start it when you're 75. You start it, whatever, today, tomorrow, that kind of thing. So, but people have more tools to be able to do that, more ways to monitor that. That'll be an improvement. And also, I think machine learning will come into play with drug development. I think we'll see a lot of algorithms mimicking things where you don't have to go through protracted clinical trials. And I think we'll see much, and I hope that will translate into lower drug costs, but I think we'll see much more productivity in that area, and hopefully with lower costs associated.
Awesome. That's great. Well, future looks bright. So thanks a lot for giving us hope there. Now, one of the last questions, you also invest in other companies, yes?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we work with a lot of startup founders, and they come to us for funding. In many cases, we sometimes help them, but sometimes we have to say, you're not ready for funding yet. So as an investor, what do you look for in the target investment opportunities, startups that you're looking at? Like, what are some of the criteria that you consider before you say, okay, this seems like something that I may want to look into?
Great question. It's, I always take a look at the pitch deck, and I always look at it with a very, not to be mean, but a very critical eye. A lot of times the spaces that I tend to work in are areas that I have expertise and background in. And there's a lot of folks that come into the healthcare space, or behavioral healthcare in particular, that really have a very limited understanding of what all the problems are. So oftentimes people will just say, well, I've been very successful in this company, in this startup, and I really am, great at doing this. Now I'm going to tackle healthcare. Mm-hmm. And healthcare has such a bizarre Byzantine reimbursement structure, and the ultimate customer is, who typically pays the bill is the employer, not the employee, et cetera, et cetera. And you've got Medicare and private pay and people uninsured. So it's just sort of like this mess. So that's one of the first areas I look at. Does a startup really understand who their market is? Does the startup understand, if this was easy, then why hasn't it already been fixed before? And they really kind of need to prove that to me. They also, it's good to see, I take for granted that they're good leaderships, that they know how to operate a business, they know how to recruit, they know how to hire and fire, et cetera. So what makes them different in terms of what their space is? So, and I will tell you, 9.5 times out of 10, they really have not done an adequate job of assessing the market. They think, I've been through so many app startups that just say that, we'll create this app and people will pay for it. And it's like, well, people don't like to pay for their health in the first place. They don't like to pay co-pays. They don't like to pay deductibles. They don't like to pay anything. If they're already paying for insurance, now you're asking them to pay for something healthcare related outside of their insurance. Mm-hmm. That's probably a 10 out of 10 where I've seen startups fail. So they oftentimes then pivot, which is always an important skill with a startup. And then they look to, well, where does the money come from? Well, does it come from the government? Then we need to look at Medicare reimbursement. Does it come from the third-party reimbursement, the Aetnas, the Blue Cross Blue Shields, et cetera? If so, great. Now let's figure out what are their points of pain? Can we help provide care, help provide cost savings for them, so that if they use us, they will create cost savings for them, and therefore they would be idiots not to use us as our startup. And that's kind of the goal. That's where people really are able to get successful startups launched and sustainable. There's been one I've worked with. I've worked with them for about 5 years. They've been in existence for about 10 years. And that's the secret to their pivot. They originally started to the customer to be paying for it, even at a very low price point, and pivoted to being able to have insurance companies pay for it. They made the pitch and understood what insurance companies were looking for, and that's been very successful for them.
Awesome, that's great. Well, thank you so much for sharing that way of figuring out what works in the market, because I think that's the key. A lot of people miss that step, and they end up wasting a lot of time and money and resources going after something that people may not want.
A lot of times people startup founders fall in love with whatever their tech is and think, well, if I love it, everyone's going to love it. And if they love it enough to buy it, then they'll be successful. But if they love it just because it's interesting and esoteric, then they have a hobby. They don't have a business.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your knowledge and your vast experience. It's very impressive. I think we covered very little today. So maybe, if you have time, I'd like to bring you on for another episode. But thank you so much for being with us today. Now, before I let you go, can you tell us how people can reach out to you?
Sure. Probably LinkedIn is the best. Dr. Chris Stout at LinkedIn. That also, I curate a vast amount of content there. I oftentimes write in the healthcare and technology space as a LinkedIn influencer. You can ping me through LinkedIn. I'm happy to share resources. I have a number of things that are available that I'm happy to send off to folks. So feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to be of help.
Great. So I'll add your LinkedIn profile URL to the show notes so that people can connect with you easily.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much once again.
Good to be on. Take care.
And that's all for now. Until next time. Now, if you're an entrepreneur or a career professional, then I invite you to join our growing community. Navigate to bootstrapping.group. As a welcome bonus, you will get the Startup Founders Technology Accelerator video series and Mastering Your Inner Game video series absolutely free. This series of short videos address some core issues which are instrumental in helping you move forward in your business or career. The videos are yours to view and share for free. No obligations or strings attached, except for one. You have to take action and implement it. So join us today. Navigate to bootstrapping.group. If you want more engaging videos and insightful interviews with industry's thought leaders, then check out the other videos we have picked for you. The link is right there. And if you want to be notified about our new content, please do consider subscribing to our channel.